Good morning, I'm Nicky Campbell. Welcome to The Big Question. Today we're live from Oasis Academy, Media City, UK in Salford. Welcome everybody to The Big Questions. Well, it has been a tricky week for the Labour Party. Suspending one MP over anti-Semitism is bad enough, but having Ken Livingstone, a leading light of the National Executive, pilloried by the press and fellow party members, and then suspended in the week before the local elections could well be disastrous. But surely everyone has the right to criticise policies, people and countries we disagree with, provided what we say does not incite racial or religious hatred or violence. And lots of people across the world have profoundly disagreed with Israel's policies and actions over the years, especially towards Palestine or the expansion of its settlements. It doesn't mean they don't think that Israel shouldn't exist at all. Is anti-Zionism anti-Semitic? Angela Epstein, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Angela, this political idea of Zionism and the homeland, I think we've got our heads around that. But if somebody were to say, and we're going to navigate our way through this, I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating. If someone were to say, I believe in a multi-ethnic, one-state solution in that part of the world, therefore Israel as such does not have a right to exist, is that anti-Semitic?
Well, Israel is the Jewish homeland, so to delegitimise the Jewish homeland is to say the Jews, and remember, they're not just Israelis, they're Jews from all over the world, haven't a right to be there. And we've all sort of bought into this week the grotesque references to the Holocaust, the final solution that Ken Livingstone, a rabid anti-Semite, has made, you know, and the Nazis were...
A rabid anti-Semite?
Yes, and the Nazis were... Allow me to finish. The Nazis were genocidal murderers who slaughtered millions of Jews. And to even bring that or nod your head towards that in the pursuit of circumspect political discourse is absolutely disgraceful.
That statement, I believe in a multi-ethnic, one-state solution, therefore Israel as such does not have a right to exist. So that is anti-Semitic.
It is, because you're saying that the Jews do not have a right to their homeland. And you can't... And to say, as the MP very lamentably said about Israel, about Jews in Israel being transported to America. Again, this language of the Third Reich, how can it not connote references of anti-Semitism and prejudice? Look, everybody has a right to criticise every government on the planet. No government should be immune to criticism, including Israel. There are Jews who criticise Israel, absolutely. But when that spills over into this unreconstructed, bitter invective, so disproportionate, and especially when compared to criticism of other countries with lamentable human rights records, you have to question, is anti-Zionism simply a Trojan horse for anti-Semitism? And why don't they like us?
Let me ask one more. Listen, we've got plenty of time. It's all right. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, he wanted to pass this law saying Israel is the nation-state of one people only, the Jewish people, and of no other people. If any other country in the world said that, people will be jumping up and down saying that's racist. Is that racist?
No, I don't think it is racist. He's you see, this is the problem. If we let's sorry, I'm sorry, but if you'd allow me the courtesy of finishing, let's spool back to the question: is it anti-Semitic to be anti-Zionism? Is anti-Zionism is it a form of anti-Semitism? You have a right to criticise other governments and what governments do or say, but.
Well, let me answer. We'll spread it out. I just want to establish parameters here, and then I'll wait. No, we can in a minute. Let Angela answer, and then I might very well come to you, Raza. And then we've got lots of other people on this side as well, and on this side. Finish your answer, Angela.
Let me just say, you know, before the establishment of the state, the Arabs were there was a partition plan where the Arabs were offered their own state alongside the Jewish state, and that was unilaterally rejected. And over subsequent wars, yes, it was. And in subsequent wars, Israel gained territory either out of defensive moves. There was an opportunity before the foundation of the state to live side by side. This is how it's come to this.
Let's take it side by side or separately, okay? But let's take it to.
There are lots of Israeli Arabs that do well living under Israeli jurisdiction.
This week. Let me take. Oh, excuse me, everyone. Let me take it to this week's debate. I will come to you in a second, Raza. Let me come to Moshe Macheva first from King's College London, who is, I suppose, a Jewish dissident, Israeli dissident.
Israeli dissident.
Yeah. When people say, for example, I saw a tweet this week saying, the Israeli government are as bad as the Nazis. I saw somebody tweeting that this week. Is that anti-Semitic?
No, it is a false statement. It is a hyperbole. It is unnecessarily provocative, but anti-Semitic it isn't. It is not trying to create hate or to express hate or
How can that not be trying to create
Jews as
hate?
such.
How can that not be trying to create hate?
Because it is a political statement about a state of Israel, which is a political entity.
It's calculated to offend.
But if you don't allow criticism and deconstruction and refutation of Zionism, then you are not able to understand the policies that we are allowed to criticize. For example, the illegal settlements. What are they? They are colonization. They are an act of Israeli
So you believe this stops debate?
It stops understanding, because the root cause of the colonization of the West Bank is the fact that Zionism, from its very beginning, was a movement not of creating a homeland anywhere, but of colonizing a country inhabited by another people in order to make...
Let me ask you one more. Let me ask you one more question. Lewis Elman in a second.
Religion.
Okay, let me ask you one more question. When people talk, and we've heard talk this week, and we heard talk in previous weeks from the president of the NUS and from Ken Livingstone referring to the Israeli lobby. She's referred to the Zionist media. Now, this very much makes a lot of people extremely uncomfortable. It relates back to the forged Tsarist document, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was all about a Jewish worldwide conspiracy. Yep. Is the phrase Zionist-controlled media anti-Semitic?
No, it is false, and it is, again, a hyperbole, and it may be offensive, especially to Zionists. But... anti-Semitic it isn't. It is a statement about the political taint, the political twist of certain papers. For example, I read The Guardian. The Guardian, one of its main editors is Jonathan Friedland, who is a Zionist propagandist.
Yes. Zionist propaganda. Louise Elman, MP. Louise Elman, MP.
I think Jonathan Friedland would be pretty bemused to hear that description of him. The problem isn't about criticising the policies of the government of Israel. That's perfectly legitimate.
But is that phrase Zionist media? Is that anti-Semitic?
I think it is, because what it's doing is taking the malign characteristics that anti-Semites attribute to Jews, being too rich, manipulative, involved in conspiracies, and then transferring that to Zionism, Jewish self-determination. That is anti-Semitic, and that is where you move. And that is where people move from legitimate. That is where people move from legitimate criticism of a country to something much deeper. And it's about singling out Israel amongst all the countries of the world.
No.
It's the only country that doesn't have any legitimacy to exist, not about a policy, but about its existence. So I think there is something very odd about that, and about the people who single out Israel amongst everything in the world, looking at the turmoil, the conflict in the world, and say that is the only country that doesn't have a justified existence. I find something deeply disturbing.
Pakistan.
Well, the idea that
Raza Nadim, Professor, don't worry. It's kind of... You can apply the Nick Griffin test to this, Raza, can't you? Some of the comments we've heard from Naz Shah, from the President of the NUS, from Ken Livingstone, if they came from the lips of Nick Griffin, the former leader of the British National Party, most right-minded people would think that those comments were vile. That surely is... Raza first, that surely is the case.
The thing is, it is a racist with previous forms. You can't really say that Naz Shah or Malia Bouati are like them. And a couple of things, though, we need to come back to...
But if you use the word solution, if you use the word transportation...
Hang on, a couple of things. First
but
of all,
if somebody says they're not a racist, that doesn't give them carte blanche.
So, okay, hang on.
Wait, everybody, now we are going to hear from...
I think what I find annoying is I think Moshe has really actually touched upon the topic, that it's anti-Semitism is a real issue, but it's made light of by saying anyone that criticises Israel, no, it's nothing to do with occupation, nothing to do with you dropping white phosphorus on children, nothing to do with settlements. No, but actually, what it's to do with is that you just hate Jews. And that is...
Angela, wait. Excuse me, I'm trying to make this as civilised as possible. I've been doing television and radio debates on this issue for 28 years, and it's never... particularly civilised. I want to have a new first.
The point...
Some hope But let's persevere.
Nikki,
Raza Nadim.
Yes. The thing is also, Nikki, it's important about the context in which this debate is taking place. This debate about racism, anti-Semitism isn't taking place because a Tory MP bought a Nazi outfit for his aide to wear. We're not talking about racism because Boris Johnson referred to African leaders with watermelon smiles. We're not talking about for those reasons. It is part of a concerted effort to undermine Jeremy Corbyn's leadership and say those that support him are full of latent anti-Semites.
John Landsman, the chair, the head of Momentum, which is the Jeremy Corbyn pressure group, support group, whatever you want to call them, he tweeted yesterday, a period of silence from Ken Livingstone is overdue, especially on anti-Semitism, racism and Zionism. Does that not tell you, because he's such a big supporter of Jeremy Corbyn, that it's nothing to do with the campaign against Jeremy Corbyn?
No, what it tells me is that he's basically finding the media pressure too much to take. Because, look, to call Ken Livingstone a rabid anti-Semite, it's just throwing that word around. I mean, look at Ken Livingstone's record. You can't just call him, you can't call him an anti-Semite. It's ridiculous.
Raja, okay,
Yes,
Rabbi, Tony in a second, Professor in a second, no, Rabbi Benji.
Yes, I think that when people who obsess with anti-Israel agenda, and it's that emotional language that you get from one side of the debate that likes to throw out accusations.
What settlements?
One moment, please. When you have a fixated attitude that sees Israel as the whole, the anti of everything that's good in the world, it does become synonymous with anti-Zionism. There are tens of thousands of people being killed in the northern border of Israel. Where are the demonstrations? Where is the anger at humanity being wiped out on a weekly basis when America accidentally kills innocents over the years in Afghanistan and other places?
There's been no demos on that yet,
The BBC is quiet and the media is quiet. When it comes to Israel, all of a sudden you have this obsession, the vociferous, the violence, the passionate anger that is beyond rational conversations, and it does become synonymous with anti-Semitism. We really do feel that in our community.
Okay, Tony, it's beyond... Wait, let me phrase this. Let me phrase this to Tony Greenstein, who is a veteran campaigner on this, Jews for boycotting Israeli goods. Is this beyond rational, this hatred of Israel that we hear, which spills into anti-Semitism?
No, of course not. I'm Jewish. I was born in this country. My homeland is in Britain. It's not in Israel. What is outrageous is that Palestinian friends of mine who are born in Israel, who grew up there, cannot return there, and I, who have never been born there, have the right to go to Israel. It's not about anti-Semitism. It's not about anti-Semitism. I'll tell you what it's about. It's difficult to justify locking up 12-year-old Palestinian children and beating them up. It's difficult that 93% of Israel is Jewish land which Arabs cannot ascertain. It's difficult to justify when you're pregnant, you go into a ward, if you're Jewish you can have a ward where there are no Arabs in it. That, to me, is racism. The evil...
Okay, I'm going to come... Wait, Tony, I'm going to come to Joy in a minute, but I want to ask you one question. Yes. Does the State of Israel have a right to exist?
No state has a right to exist, because states aren't human beings. Israel or Palestine has the right to exist as a state of its own citizens, not as a state of Jewish people, wherever they live.
Joy Wolf, don't worry, we've got time.
Professor Maccabee is rewriting history. There is absolutely no doubt that at the beginning, when there was an opportunity for two states alongside each other, it could have happened and should have happened. And what happened was that there was a war launched and Israel won some land. When Israel has tried to give back land to Gaza, wouldn't take it back. Tried to...
No. 1967, Egypt said no to Gaza.
It is not rubbish, and what is rubbish is white phosphorus on children.
Okay, wait, everybody be quiet for 1 second. I want to say something to you. We have, Tony...
No, you
Tony,
haven't.
Joy, Tony, be quiet, please, everybody, for 1 second. I want to say one thing to you now. We are inevitably, I guess, straying into the politics of the Middle East. I want everybody to, and it's a natural and understandable corollary of our conversation and of our debate. But I want to, as much as possible, if we could, focus on this area between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, and try, if we can, to establish where something and when something becomes anti-Semitic. If that's okay, everyone, that would be great. Joy.
I would like to carry on with that, because what I can't understand is this. There are conflicts throughout the world, and somehow the spotlight is always on Israel. Now, you have to ask the question, why is the spotlight always on Israel? Is it because it's the Jewish state, which is what I believe? Israel isn't perfect. Israel does a lot of things wrong. We've got a lot of enemies, but also we do a lot for the world. Why is it that a group of doctors wanted to have Israel out of the World Health Organization when Israel has done so much in research? And it's absolutely crazy.
Collaborate in torture.
I bet South Africa, apartheid state offered a lot.
Professor Maccabee and Tony Greenstein are probably the most well-known anti-Israel people, Jewish people in this country. So we're up against a wall here, but we have to be factual about the truth. And the truth is, there is no reason why Jews and Palestinians and Arabs cannot and do live alongside each other in Israel and live very well. And if you ask, there is no such thing as Israeli apartheid. Israel is the absolute... the opposite of apartheid. You give me one
Joy,
example of apartheid.
is that, and again, I'm trying to focus, is the phrase Israeli apartheid. Let me ask you, Angela, is that anti-Semitic?
Yes, of course it's anti-Semitic. There's no such thing. Just say, first of all,
The truth is anti-Semitic.
I'm sorry, Joe. Can I just say, first of all, gentlemen, I mean, I support Nicky, and we're trying to have a civilised debate here, and the very fact that you're shouting down anything that connotes support of Israel and the Jewish state says something about the weakness of your argument. And by the way, could I also say, my friend, as a fellow Jew, Hitler would have not distinguished between you and me. You should also remember that. But the point about he would not, you would have been on the trains with everybody else, regardless of your views.
Ken Livingstone was criticised for bringing Hitler into the conversation.
I'm Jewish. I condone. Yes, but unlike Ken Livingstone, I would have been a target for Hitler. Ken Livingstone wouldn't have been. Could I just make the point about Zionism? The problem with Zionism now, to bring the debate back to the original question, to bring the debate, well, behave maturely. To bring the debate back to the original question, the problem now is that Zionism and Zionist has become a byword for Jew. So Jewish students on campus.
I'm sure on occasion it can do, and on other occasions it doesn't. Angela, let me finish. Professor, you can make a statement in 1 second. You can. You can say something in 1 second, and we're just going to let Angela finish, and then we're going to come over to you, and I'm going to let you say, Professor.
Okay, so as many Jewish students I know, including my own children, who experience it on campus, have been called Zio, which has become a byword, a derogatory byword for Jew. Now, the newly elected NUS president has described Birmingham University, for example, as absolutely disgracefully as a Zionist outpost. Why? Well, if you give me an opportunity, I'll explain to you.
More than an opportunity.
Okay.
Okay,
very quickly.
Come to your closing remark.
Okay, very quickly. It's awful that I have to be bullied into that, but very quickly. The fact is that Birmingham University has attracted an awful lot of Jewish students, and that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Just as Glaswegians may want to be with Glaswegians, Jewish students might want to be with Jewish students. To call them Zionist activists and a Zionist outpost, how can that expression of Zionism not be anti-Semitism?
Professor, how can that not be anti-Semitism? Professor Maccabee.
I want to take a step towards the other side. I can understand their rage. Zionist Jews have made Zionism as part of their Jewish identity. So it is as though it is a surrogate religion. So when Zionism is attacked, they feel that their Jewishness is attacked. But non-Zionist Jews, anti-Zionist Jews, don't feel that it has anything to do with their Jewish identity. So when they say...
But you respect those who do.
Well, I understand them. Respect is another matter. Depends on what they do. What they think, I respect every thought. But what they do is very questionable, especially when it involves colonization of land.
Do you accept the point that has been made, Professor, that there are a lot worse excesses and atrocities by other states across the world who disproportionately are not focused on?
Certainly not. There are 2 points. Israel is not the only settler state in the world, but it's the only one that is still active, and its colonization is still ongoing. In the United States, in Australia, the natives have been completely marginalized, in some places exterminated. They have been ethnically cleansed. In the case of Israel-Palestine, colonization is ongoing. Secondly, there are other states who are, in the same position. For example, Pakistan, another state founded on religion, which is a danger to the world. Two of them, nuclear-armed states, which are a danger to their surrounding and a danger to the world.
Okay. No, I want to come to the audience. So gather your thoughts. I want quick comments from the audience. But Louise Ellman, I have to give the right of reply on that because some very strong things were said there by the professor.
Audience
after Louise.
What we've just heard is absolute distortion. There is a bitter conflict between Jewish and Palestinian nationalism, both legitimate concepts. It can only be resolved by a political solution that gives a Palestinian state alongside Israel. But what has been happening is that there have been wars. Israel has fought defensive wars, and as a result of that, did end up occupying land that it did not have previously. Now, when a peace treaty was reached with Egypt, Israel withdrew from the whole of the Sinai. Israel then withdrew from the whole of Gaza. And unfortunately, instead of that being followed by peace, that was followed by Hamas. And to call Israel an apartheid state, again, is a slur. And it goes back to the point of singling Israel out. A third of Israel's citizens are non-Jewish. They're Arab, they're Muslims. The Supreme Court just sentenced the last Israeli president to jail. Israel is not an apartheid state. Yes, there are problems. Yes, the whole issue of settlements and expansion of land is serious, has to be resolved by discussion. And when people talk about this bitter dispute, it's all too common to single out Israel as being solely responsible for there not being a solution. What about the Palestinians too? No one's done it all right and no one's done it all wrong. The two peoples have to come together and negotiate a solution. And maligning Israel as being solely responsible, again, is an example of singling Israel, the only Jewish state, out amongst all nations.
OK, audience. Very quick comments, if you would, sort of little pithy comments. Hello, good morning. What would you like to say?
I think people that are worried about the actions of the Israeli state aren't just worried about Israel. They're concerned about other social and political issues too. Even in our country, they're concerned about, junior doctors and things like that. I don't think we should think it's all about Israel all the time. We're worried about all issues, so don't focus too much. We're thinking about other countries as well.
OK, and gentleman there in the black top.
Yes, I'm sure most sane people would agree that Israel does have a right to exist. It also has a right to defend its borders. But nevertheless, at the same token, I think Palestine has got a right to exist as well. And hopefully, as Obama said, hopefully this can come about where two states can live in harmony. It might take some time, but you've got to be optimistic. But I would say this, that just to condemn Israel because it's a Jewish state, as far as I'm concerned, that is anti-Semite. Also, and finally...
Raza, you're next on the list. Don't worry. A lady beside you, you wanted to say something.
Oh, yes. Interesting that the professor said about Jews who are not Zionist. I'm not particularly either. I do believe that if we had true social justice in every single country, we wouldn't need Israel. But my point is, not being particularly Zionist, having no connection particularly to Israel, I fail to understand why so many British and European people do seem to have such an uncanny connection to the Middle East. Yeah. And so much so that they are prepared to go out and malign Israel on every single opportunity, when not quite so many numbers malign, say, China and Tibet, or India and Kashmir.
I've started... OK, listen, it's audience time. I'll be with you. Don't worry. Don't look at me like that. For goodness sake, I will be with you.
That's just my place.
I know. Yeah, and final comment from the audience for now. Yeah.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. My point is just that, like the professor at the front said, that how Pakistan is also state-based, it was made on religious basis. So anti-Zionism is, being against the state. So if saying that if you're against the state of Pakistan, then that does make you Islamophobe as well. Because if you're against the state of Israel, if that makes you anti-Semitic, then being against the state of Pakistan would make you an Islamophobe. So
exactly.
Raza Nadeem, let me ask you a couple of questions. Okay. I know you've got lots of points to make. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Mehdi Hassan, in 2012, the well-known Muslim commentator, wrote a very interesting article. A lot of people said it was a very brave article at the time, said that conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism was rife in the Muslim community. And coming from him, this was very interesting. He said that anti-Semitism was the Muslim community's dirty little secret.
I know which article.
Is he right?
No, I don't think it's our dirty little secret. Thing is, you find bigots, sadly...
Why did he say it?
Well, the thing is, he felt the need to write the article. You've got to ask him why he did that. I mean, I don't think he documents the exact reason why. But I want to come back to a couple of points regarding anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism. What I've seen in the debate often is very poor whataboutery about in terms of, you only talk about Israel, as if we never talk about Bashar al-Assad, what he's doing to others, or about other human rights abuses. But also, I agree with Louise Ellman on one thing, and that is, Israel does want peace. It's just that we're spelling it wrong. They want a piece of this and they want a piece of that.
Oh, goodness.
One more. Tony, one more. One more. Of course, at the moment, you're not allowed a platform by the NUS due to various issues with your group relating to anti-Zionism. And a parliamentary inquiry into anti-Zionism in 2006. So, I know you weren't around then, but this is prior to you. Said your organisation published material promoting the idea of a worldwide Zionist conspiracy, information which originally came from a Holocaust denial website. Have your organisation, MPAC, have you cleaned up your act?
Well, there's a couple of things. First, on that, I'll answer that. But what I found is when it comes to defending the indefensible, which often comes with Israel's advocates, is they have to go on the offensive and accuse others of being anti-Semitic rather than argue the
Holocaust denial website.
Now, hang on, no. The thing is this. Now, regarding those things, I would recommend people go on the MPAC UK website to look at some of the rebuttals to these smears. It may have been someone shared an image that another blog also used. So they're very spurious things. But what I found is, as an activist on the Palestinian issue, especially as a Muslim one, I'm always told it's nothing to do with abuse of other human beings. It's just because I hate Jews. And that is a caricature, and it's wrong, and it stops having an adult conversation about Israel occupying Palestine.
Rabbi Benji.
Let me ask you a question, see how you would deal with this one. The very first time I appeared on this show, social media comments afterwards attacked me because of the policies of the State of Israel. Okay, being anti-Semitic is not popular these days, so they had to go at me in a different way. How can I claim to want a shared humanity? How can I claim to want all people to get on together?
So
how can I say that?
You can't say, hang on, so you're saying they disagreed with you?
But they used Israel, but they used Israel to have a go at me.
No, hang on, no,
they did.
Because you support Israel, you defend Israel.
But I wasn't speaking about Israel on the day, yet I was attacked because I'm a Jew, I'm a religious Jew, as a religious Jew, the Bible is something that's important to me. Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, God sent to Abraham to go. The Christians have that, and the Quran also mentions Israel for the Jewish people.
You should be afraid of the Christian Zionists, the evangelicals, and what they want to do.
Your supporters are anti-Semites. That's the reality. The far right in Europe, like Strack, has just got the highest percentage in Austrian poll. He supports Israel, but he hates Jews. That's the reality.
But I'm asking, why was I attacked?
Why was
because of policies of Israel?
Support Israel, a defender of Zionism. Nick Griffin, he supports Israel, but he opposes Jews. That's
why
the reality.
The Holocaust right for the Jews to have a homeland alongside.
Because the Jews are members of every nation, not just one nation. We're not a nation. We're a religion.
Yes, we are a
That's
nation.
Different.
The nation of Israel.
Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. That's what the anti-Semites say. We're a whole nation.
The nation of Israel. Pick up that point.
Well, indeed, the nation of Israel. It is the one Jewish state in the world. It is the one state that is attacked by the Human Rights Council. The Human Rights Council has just done something utterly ridiculous. It doesn't have resolutions against any other country, but recently it's had a resolution about the way Israel treats its women. Now, as far as Israel is concerned and women, there is no better place in the Middle East for women than Israel. And some of the things that have been said are so offensive. Israel is not a settler state. It is not an apartheid state. It is a melting pot. Israel is a state that was
started off as a settler state.
Israel was given legitimacy by the United Nations and was happy to go alongside. You can be in Israel. You can be next to an Arab village and a Jewish village.
And half of them are unrecognised.
Joy,
for goodness sake, Tony, for goodness sake, stop talking utter rubbish.
Joy, can I ask you, Tony, hang on.
Have some
wait a minute, Joy,
emotion.
Tony. Let me put the point, actually, that I put to Angela, who will have another chance, don't worry, that I put to Angela at the beginning, this Benjamin Netanyahu clause. He wanted to pass this law.
I totally disagree with that.
Right.
And I think
Let me remind people, if people have just switched on, he said it should be the nation state of one people only, the Jewish people, and of no other people. Do you realise that's hugely counterproductive?
It is terrible, and I oppose it 100%, and pretty well every Israeli will oppose it, and every decent Jew will oppose it.
It didn't go into law, but...
Every decent Jew will oppose that.
Of course it is.
It's a Jewish state with over 1 million Arabs who want to stay there, and when there was a possibility... Can I just finish one point?
Wait, let everyone be quiet. Joy.
Sorry.
Joy. It's too screamy at the moment. And Tony, I feel like the Speaker in the House of Commons here. Daphne, I'm going to come to you in a second.
I think calm down completely, and I will just say one thing. The Israeli Arabs, when there was a possibility of transfer of land, when in 2000 they were offered for a solution, 97% of the land, the Israeli Arabs queued up in the consulate to get their Israeli passport. Ask any Israeli Arab if they prefer to live in Israel or they prefer to live in the state of Palestine or elsewhere, and you will find that they want to live in Israel. It's the Palestinian Authority as yet that is the state, but there should be.
Daphne, thank you very much. You're Jewish. You're Jewish.
I am. Yeah. Well, I'm an atheist Jew, and I'm an Israeli, and I'm an anti-Zionist.
Is anti-Zionism, can it stray into anti-Semitism?
Well, the two are not mutually exclusive, but these are two very different things, and there's no connection between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. One can opt to be an anti-Semite and to add anti-Zionism to their basket, but that's their problem. What I'm saying is, the question of Zionism in Israel is a question of regime, and we have a right to resent the very regime of Israel, not just any specific politics, but the idea of a Jewish state as such, which I find abhorrent. This is akin to a British person wanting to turn Britain into a republic. This is a constitutional change. This is not about the right of Israel to exist, and of course it's not about the right of the Israeli people to exist.
If you were to redraw the map,
its right to be an apartheid state,
if you were to wave your magic wand and redraw the map, what would it look like?
It's not about the map. I would have the whole thing as a one state with a democracy and a state of all its inhabitants and all its citizens. This is not an anti-Semitic idea.
Is that anti-Semitic? Angela, Stephen, I'll be with you soon. Is that an anti-Semitic idea?
What, to have
one state, everybody together in a democracy?
If it could work, well, look, the Jews were conferred a Jewish homeland, okay?
By whom? By whom? By Balfour, the anti-Semite, the self-proclaimed anti-Semite?
Balfour didn't want the Jews here, so he said, go there.
Okay, let's listen to Angela. Imagine that you're listening to her on the radio and you're just listening to what she's got to say. Tony, you'd probably be shouting at the radio. I appreciate that. But Angela, carry on.
It's the kind of hysteria that absolutely knuckles any attempt to have a sensible debate, and I don't know why. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the debate is. We have to knuckle. You want to knuckle at freedom of expression and all the things that you're.
Less of the knuckle. Finish your point.
You're shouting over me, so you're not allowing me the freedom of expression. Now, hang on a second. The thing is that for those of people who haven't been to Israel, who haven't been to the West Bank, I've got family that live on the West Bank. I've been to the checkpoint.
By what right? By what right do they live on the West Bank? They are colonizers. They are colonizers.
Listen, if it carries on like this, I'm going to walk out and leave you all to it. All right? Angela, there's a point. What rights have they got to be on the West Bank? In a calm way, answer the point that was hollered from over there.
Because the territory was acquired through war, through defensive action.
It was the Geneva Conventions to colonize.
We're getting nowhere. We're getting nowhere. Bishop, wait, you know what?
Nikki, can I make the point, please? Well, if I may. All I was going to say is, my late mother fell ill while she was in Israel, visiting family that lived there. Her life was saved by an Israeli Arab haematologist and other Israelis on the medical team. There are Israeli Arabs who live very happily under Israeli jurisdiction. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas subjugate the people of Gaza and use them as political
right
tools.
Does your family have to live in the West Bank?
Because nobody owned that land.
Bishop Stephen Lowe. Bishop Stephen. Be quiet. Professor, you've put yourself very much on my list. I won't tell you what that list is. Bishop Stephen Lowe.
What is so sad is that Jesus wept over Jerusalem, and this conversation makes me want to weep, because neither side is really communicating with the other. They're not listening to each other. They're actually stuck in their own worlds, and I find that quite frightening, really, because if you once get inside a box and can't see out of the box, you don't communicate between the boxes.
They're both in boxes, different boxes.
And I feel at the moment they're in two different boxes.
Jesus
Can I just finish, please, now as well?
You're still interrupted.
What I want to say is that I personally believe passionately in the existence of Israel as a place for the Jewish people to find as their homeland. But I have found it very difficult, as a Christian, to find myself defending that position and yet being accused of being anti-Semitic when I have criticised the Israeli government over some of the things that they have done.
Have you been criticised?
Oh, yes. I have actually been taken to one side and spoken to, quite seriously.
By?
by people with connections into the Jewish community in this city of Manchester, where I was for many years.
So do you think it devalues, this is what we're debating, anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, do you think it devalues the term anti-Semitism if it is bandied about?
It does indeed, 100%. Because for me, I do not believe in any way I am anti-Semitic. Yeah. I have visited and been moved by the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. I have been there, I have been to kibbutz, I have got to know and have many Jewish friends. It is insulting to me to be described as anti-Semitic when I criticise the Israeli government for some of the things that they have done. And we have to, in our society, draw a very clear line between the criticism of a government, wherever it is, and a prejudice against people of a particular faith and religion. And the sooner we stop doing that, the better.
Welcome. Welcome to our merry throng.
Can I answer your question? Is
anti-Zionism anti-Semitic?
Right. Anti-Semitism is being anti-Jewish. That means hating all Jews, which certainly from an Islamic perspective is strictly forbidden because racism is strictly forbidden. We are all the children of Adam and Eve, we are all one family, and to be racist towards each other is strictly forbidden. Anti-Zionism, well, Zionism is responsible for the ethnic cleansing of 800,000 Palestinians from 700 villages by the use of sheer terrorism, the terrorism of the Haganah, the Irgun, the Stern Gang, the Palmach. These were terrorist groups that ethnically cleansed the land to make way for the Zionist regime.
And the Jews in Arab lands in 1947?
No, they left because of it.
Louise Ellman. Louise Ellman, member of Parliament for
Liverpool Riverside.
Liverpool Riverside.
I mean, please, can everybody stop shouting at each other across the floor? There is a serious political issue about national aspirations of Jewish people and Palestinian people that needs to be resolved by a negotiation which retains the Jewish state of Israel, but also a state for all its citizens, a third of whom are not Jewish at all but have equal rights, and a Palestinian state set up alongside Israel, given massive investment to make it a viable state with a good economy. But until we get to that position, we do have to find a way of talking to one another. And one of the problems is to do with demonising one side. The reason that this hasn't been resolved cannot be put down to only one side. And we can all find fault with leaders in Israel and leaders in the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian side. But when continually in debates on this subject, it is only Israel who's criticised to the exclusion of criticism of the Palestinian leadership, then that's starting to demonise what is in fact a complex and very tragic situation. Okay. So I think that's a problem, and I think that's one of the issues.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be two more comments on this debate, and those comments will come from the Professor and also from Joy. And I want your comment to be short and concise. And Professor, what's your final thought on this question?
My final thought is that this onslaught equating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism is an attempt to prevent us from understanding the root of the problem. The reason colonization of the West Bank, the relatives of my colleague here, is allowed to live contrary to the Geneva Conventions in occupied territories is because Zionism, from its beginning, is a project of colonization of Palestine and making it into a Jewish majority or exclusively Jewish state.
Thank you. And I think appropriately accounts to that from Joy Wolf from the Zionist Central Council. You have the last word.
I totally disagree that Israel is about colonization. I believe
anti-Semitism.
And anti-Semitism. I do not believe that every anti-Zionist comment is anti-Semitic, but unfortunately a lot of anti-Semitism is creeping in. And when we get remarks like Israel doesn't want peace but a peace, I would like to see when the Palestinians want peace. I want to see Abbas not saying that he will never make peace, not saying that he will never recognize the Jewish state, and not saying that no Jew would be allowed to live in the state of Palestine. He has said all those things. We've heard so many myths today. The one thing, talking about Yes, there has been white phosphorus to light up the sky. To suggest that Israel...
It's not fireworks. It's burning down on people.
Excuse me.
How dare you?
How dare you suggest? How dare
you? Burn children alive. How dare you justify that? You're like a Holocaust denier.
Joy, you're saying she's like a Holocaust denier?
Yes, exactly.
Joy will have the last word. I'm going to give you 10 seconds.
Well, all I will say is that I think the Palestinians have been the most misled people in history because they have had the opportunity of not being a refugee community for years and years and years, and their leaders have failed them and prevented them. They've had masses of money that has not been invested properly.
Thank you all very much.